Good morning and welcome to Morning Brew. It is Friday, the 5th of May 2023, and the results are coming in for the Tories in the local elections, and the results are not good for the Tories. The Tories have so far lost 200 seats. Now listen, don't get too excited. As Phil explained yesterday, there will be results coming in from the cities first, which are more likely to vote Labour or other parties. It's not just Labour who's done well. The Lib Dems have done well. The Greens have done well. Independents have done well. Everyone's done well. Morning. But don't get too excited because the rural votes take a long time to come in, and it might be the end of the day before we know the full picture. But as things stand, Professor Ian Curtis? No, the other one. Professor Curtis. He is already saying that the Tories are on track for losing 1,000 seats. 1,000 seats, my friends. 1,000 seats, which would be just absolutely incredible. The Conservatives so far have lost 228 seats. Labour have gained 119. The Lib Dems are up 61. The Independents are up 22, and the Greens are doing really well. They're up 33. Now, in one of my friends' constituencies, there was in Hunston Ward, the results came in, and basically the Labour, the Conservative Party candidate, this is a Conservative stronghold, only got 90 votes. When we were talking about the fact that a five-a-side football team is enough to sway the votes in this whole election, because it's only a local election, and most people don't vote in local elections, so the numbers don't have to be that big to actually win. 90 people voted for the Conservative Party, and 363 people voted for the Greens. That is phenomenal. That is a huge turnaround for that ward, and this is the blue wall. This is the blue wall. We're seeing the beginning now of the blue wall well and truly collapsing. Yes. Which I don't think anyone can complain about because, Tories. Anyway, what else have we got here? Tory party chairman Greg Hands was on Radio 4 this morning going on about how Labour should have done better. Good luck with that, mate. That's from Freckle Puny. Lee Corn saying, in case you're interested, I've changed my profile pic to the Republican flag for the weekend. Feel free to steal it and use it yourself if you're not a monarchist. Well, when I got up this morning, my beautiful partner, Catherine, said to me, have a look out the window. I looked out the window. The weather was crap. And I went, oh, that's a bit miserable. I said, yeah, but it's going to be crap all weekend. Which means that King Charles III is going to be coronated in the rain. Obviously, he's going to be inside when he gets coronated, but all the crowds, the weirdos who like to hang around outside, Beatlemania all over again, screaming for a guy who is a little bit out of touch, I would say, about old Charlie, but there you go. Labour won, I hope so, says David. Well, it's a local election, so there's thousands of seats up for grabs, and basically Labour are doing quite well at the moment. They are up over 200 seats. The Tories are doing really badly. They've lost over 200 seats, and Labour have won over 100. Obviously, if you make it a bank holiday, it's going to rain. It's the law. It is indeed. It's funny, tragic. The Tory line is, we were only being crushed rather than utterly obliterated. We call this a win. Which is something, Mark, that we said would happen, isn't it? On this show a few days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, we said they're going to say we're going to lose 1,000 seats, and then when they lose 800, they'll call it a win. Which, it's very easy to diss the Tories. That's the end of that sentence. It's very easy to diss the Tories because they're awful. But that strategy of saying we lost, but did we really lose, is straight out of the handbook of Jeremy Corbyn. Do you remember in the 2017 election when he lost against Theresa May, who ran the worst campaign the Tories have ever ran in history, and he still lost? But afterwards he said, and I quote, "It was clear who really won that election." Really? Yeah, it was the Tories, mate. You lost. Labour lost. But because they didn't lose as badly as everyone thought they were going to lose, Corbyn got to stay in for another 2 years and took the Labour Party to their biggest electoral defeat since 1935. Yeah. Oh, well, that's ancient history now. Corbyn's not even part of our party anymore. Whoop! But I am. But he's not, sorry, I think he's still a member, but he's definitely not still a MP. Where we go? Obviously, if you make it a bank holiday, blah, blah, blah. When I stood as a paper candidate for the Green Party, I expected to get at least 120 votes. Tory only gets 90. Yeah. That's pretty bad. In fact, hang on, let me have a look at Notty Ash, where I stood in 2019. As a Lib Dem, I was a what they called a paper candidate. Notty Ash has now been obliterated. It's been absorbed into where I grew up has been absorbed into West Derby, Layfield, which is sad. You know, I like my connection with the Diddy men, and I like the fact that I used to go and do that, go and vote at the same polling station as Ken Dodd. Anyway, so yeah, I got 264 votes as a paper candidate for the Lib Dems. Okay, the winning candidate got 1,778 votes, but that's not the point. As a paper candidate, who wasn't even in the country at the time, I got 264 votes. So yeah, that's pretty awful for the Tories, and that's a lot of Tory voters staying away as well, which is something that voters do. We talk a lot about swing voters, and they don't really exist. You don't get that many lifelong Tory voters who go, right, that's it, I'm going to vote for Labour now for the rest of my life. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does, but it's just unlikely. It's less likely than what normally happens in elections, which is that people who are a Tory voter or a Labour voter all their life, they stay at home because they just don't want to vote. We saw this in 2019. People who wanted to vote for Labour just couldn't bring themselves to do it, and so they just didn't leave home. And that's how you win elections. You get your voters out. It's not about appealing to the other side, and it's why I feel a bit uncomfortable when I feel like Labour under Starmer goes a little bit too far to the right on some issues. You know, appeal to the centre ground, fine, I don't mind that, but there is a line. There's quite clearly a line that you should not cross if you're going to represent Labour voters around the country for 5 years in government. Or 10 years, or 15 years. I don't know how long they'll stay in. Charles the Third said in a heavy Jamaican accent, or Irish accent, obviously he says a feckle puny, King Sausage Fingers, the hopefully last. RAF flyby looks like it'll be cancelled tomorrow due to low clouds. Oh dear, how sad, never mind. I was in the mob. One angry pagan says, Graham, farmers down here in the southwest are very angry at the Tories, expecting a big shift down here as such. Well, one of the things in my friend's constituency of Hunston ward, of Hunston, I guess, in the ward of Hunston, is that, it was environmental issues, and that's why everyone went to the Greens, because I think I don't think it's to do with HS2. I don't think it's on the HS2 route. I think there's a quarry that was getting built nearby that people were not happy about, and also I just don't think people are happy with the fact that the Tories are, their mates in the water companies are pumping gigatons of raw sewage, tampons, used condoms, wet wipes into our nation's watercourses. I mean, do you know what I mean? That they're doing that. They are doing that, and the Tories are letting them because the fines that they have to pay are less than the amount it would cost to clean up and actually treat the sewage properly. Also, this is a Brexit benefit. You know, some of the chemicals that we get for treating sewage, it's harder to get now because of Brexit. Yeah, interesting. Results update from Bowler Hat Man. Hey, Ollie, how you doing, mate? I've got to get you on this show. Give us a call. Give me a call. Call me. 62 of 230 councils, counting still underway. Labour, 653, plus that's up 119. Conservatives, 454, and that's down 228. Yes! The Tories leave you with a nasty taste in your mouth. That's from Perry Pilot. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. What a waste of money around Euston Station now. It's not the end of the HS2 utter scandal. I mean, isn't it mad that HS2 isn't supported by too many environmentalists? I mean, it's the one thing that you would expect that everyone in the sort of the anti-carbon lobby would get together on and say, yes, we do need more high-speed trains. But this is the thing about the Conservatives. They've got a reverse Midas touch. Everything they touch turns to shit because they're incompetent. They are absolutely incompetent. They are terrible, terrible people. and terrible at making decisions, which leads to any good idea, which, hey, let's make more railways, that's fundamentally a good idea. But the way they've gone about it is absolutely disgraceful, and just the most ridiculous way they could go about it. And they have alienated a lot of their heartlands because of this project. And you think you could have done this so much better if you brought back some old lines. Yes, you wouldn't be able to go as fast on them, but that's not the point. Nobody cares that it takes 2 hours and 7 minutes to get from Liverpool to London. That's fine. That is fine. That's the time it takes. That is fine. It's like going, oh, no one's going to cross the Atlantic now because Concorde no longer exists. You've got to have Concorde. Well, no, we retired Concorde because one of them blew up. And so we still have flights over the Atlantic. It's fine. They just take a bit longer. We could have brought back thousands of miles of disused tracks around the country for the same price that we're paying for HS2. Don't want to get derailed onto talking about HS2. There's loads of comments coming into the chat. This is fantastic. I can see out the corner of my eye the comments coming up thick and fast. Josh Rogers says, yes, but it was the local Conservatives that have been hammering the poor state to the road, like when they were absolutely wonderful when the Tories controlled the council. Indeed. HS2 was started by Labour. Yeah, Katrina, I think HS2 was a good idea. I've got to qualify this, okay? I think that having more railways is fundamentally a good idea because I don't want to have to drive down to London. I would much rather take the train. However, the way it's been done has been awful, as bad as it could possibly get. They have mucked up the whole thing, the marketing behind it, the plan, where they've put the tracks, what the destruction of ancient woodlands. I mean, what were they thinking? They didn't have to do it this way, and that's the frustrating thing. There's a thing called the central. I've been derailed. It's fine. I'll come back onto the local elections in a moment. And Phil will be joining me at 1 o'clock today for a roundup of the week where we will be talking in depth about the election results. So join me and Phil Morehouse at 1 o'clock for the agenda. A big roundup of the week live. You'll be able to put your chat in that chat over here. But yeah, there was a line that used to go from Manchester through the Woodhead tunnels into Sheffield and then down from Sheffield to London. And it was called the Central Main Line. So you've got the East Coast Main Line, the West Coast Main Line, and there used to be the Central Main Line in the middle. They could bring that back. And it will cost less. And yes, there have been some houses and supermarkets built on the trackbed. There have been, some bridges and tunnels that are no longer there. The tunnels probably are. But you could bring them back. The problem would be, it wouldn't be a high-speed link. That was the big problem. That was what they looked at and said, well, it wouldn't be high speed because it was built in the 1890s. So it'd have to be trains going 125 miles an hour maximum. But it was built as a high-speed train track. It was all built on a different level to the ground. So either it was on an embankment or it was under the ground or it was going across on bridges. So there were no level crossings on this line at all. And yeah, they could have just brought that back. They literally could have just gone, all right, we'll bring this back, and then we've got this option for getting up to Sheffield and up to Manchester through the Woodhead tunnels. But they can't because, first of all, the Woodhead tunnels have been used for electricity cables for years, and apparently now they're poisonous, so you can't actually use them for trains anymore. Great. And the other problem was that the Tory policy and stuff, but you still could get it up to Sheffield, and from Sheffield, obviously, it'd be great if we had alternatives from getting Sheffield to Manchester and to Leeds and up as far as Newcastle and into Scotland, into Edinburgh and Glasgow. One of the big problems we have at the moment is if there's a problem on the East Coast or the West Coast Main Line, that's it. All the trains stop. Yay! For a bit until you move the train that's broken down or whatever the problem is. And also another problem, which I've spoken about many times before, is that all these different types of trains use the same track. I will take all of the freight trains and all of the regional trains off those two tracks and put them on their own dedicated lines where they can trundle along at 15 miles an hour and no one will care. If all the trains on a given train track all run at the same speed, they can leave every 3 minutes, like the tube. Yeah. HS2 spent tens of billions on admin in their London offices before a spade was even taken out. That's disgraceful. Lee says, yes, it's added capacity to avoid local services, but it's being sold as high speed. They've already been talking about max speeds of 145 miles an hour, which is barely more than the West Coast Main Line. I know. That's why it's so pointless, because, I mean, like, let's imagine that these trains can get up to 300 miles an hour. For what? A minute? Britain's a really small country. Like, how far away do you think these train stations are? It'll be like, yeah, we're up to 300 miles an hour. Oh, no, we have to slow down again. Yeah, we're up to 300. No, we have to slow down again. Hey, we got to... Dej Kirby Mag says the voter ID and voter suppression looks so backfired on the Tories. I'm seeing more elderly, potentially Tory voters being turned away than younger ones. You know, there's two things to that. Older people are more likely to vote in the first place, whereas young people are less likely to vote. But the people who are young are more likely to be engaged in politics in a way that older people perhaps aren't, in that young people are more likely to have actually researched stuff and sort out information from different sources about what's happening in an election and what's happening in politics. Whereas older people in general, not all old people, hashtag not all old people, don't at me, older people in general tend to take their political views from their peers and also their newspapers that they read, and all their peers generally read the same newspapers. So, I think there's a big case of people not turning out, but also the big newspapers, the tabloids that older people read, because no one under the age of 40 reads a tabloid newspaper. A shocker. Reads a newspaper, in fact. The papers that they read didn't make a big thing about this Tory voter ID scheme. Because they just assumed that they had made it in such a way that all old people, well, most old people, would have the correct ID in their wallet or purse when they went to the polling station. That backfired. I think it did. I hope it did. What's that side? 5 minutes in and you're slugging off socialist is your go-to position. I was talking about HS2, mate, but okay. HS2 is not the reason for Tory losses in the South. Brexit and the loss of EU rights is the main reason. That's from RC. Aki's Mad says, morning Hugh. I like that. I want to know if Aki's Mad is named after Purple Aki from Liverpool, but we'll have a conversation about that some other time. Master Templar, hello. Yes, I'm going to get you onto the Discord server straight after this. So after this show, I'll be going on Discord for a little bit. If you want to join me, please do. If you don't have access to the Discord server, let me know by sending me a chat through Patreon, if you are a patron, or from the YouTube members thing where you can send me a message, and I'll make sure that you are actually a member. So I'll spend invited along to the Discord server to chat after the show. Corrupt pollsters are taking Brexit issues and breaking them up into smaller issues so Brexit doesn't feature as the main reason. Indeed, HS2 is more about capacity than speed. Yes, I know, Neil. I get that entirely. It frees up slots on the East Coast and West Coast main lines as well as stations along Birmingham New Street. Yes, Neil. What I think they should have done is made a low speed 2 or low speed 1, which was for all the regional trains and for all of the freight trains to get the hell off the East Coast main line and the West Coast main line, and just have them for 125 mile an hour trains that leave every 3 minutes if you want to, because if all the trains are doing the same speed, they can leave every 3 minutes. I know they wouldn't. I know there's not that much demand, but they could. And doing that, you could use the old track beds that were taken, the old track bed from the rails that were ripped up by the Tories in the 1960s. It really annoys me that almost every week now in Prime Minister's Questions, some Tory will stand up from the back benches and say, "We've restored this railway that was taken away from us in the 1960s. And I'm like, yes, you've restored a railway that the Tories took away in the 1960s, because the transport minister in the 1960s was a guy called Ernest Marples, who owned a company called Marples Ridgeway Construction, who specialised in making, guess what, and this isn't the plot of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but it kind of is, motorways. Transport minister making motorways, and he's the guy who got all the train stations shut down. Indeed. Stephen Durant is there. Yes, hello, good morning. Don't forget to smash capitalism. £2 super chat. Thank you very much, Stephen. You are a legend. Per Balaki, very odd fellow. I've read some things about him some time ago. Can I feel your muscles, mate? Yes. Per Balaki, famous for having an ASBO for not being allowed to hang out outside gyms and touch people's muscles. He's a bit of a character. Let's put it that way. Did you see the Tory MP being interviewed as Plymouth was announced as being a Labour victory? No, Justin, but I will watch that after this. If we go over to the Discord server after the show, I'll try and play it on there. The Riviera line from Exeter to Torquay and Paddington said. Oh, Paignton. See, I got that wrong. Paignton is probably the best in the country. Should know. I've grown up around the trains. Lol. Alexander says also the loss of agricultural subsidies, which went to the southwest, not being replaced by national subsidies, may have something to do with the backlash against the Tories. Indeed. HS2, not about speed. It literally has speed in the title. Exactly, RC. Exactly. That is why the marketing, the whole ethos behind HS2 is just so bad. Like, they have cocked everything up and they've annoyed everyone. Everyone, even people who wanted it, even people who thought, yes, this will be a good idea, looking at what the Tories have done with this project and gone, what the hell? It's because the Tories don't know what they're doing. They really, really don't know what they are doing. What the hell they are doing. Anyway, so yes, we're going to have a look a bit more at the polls, see what changed. High-speed rail is expensive. The 300-kilometre rail tracks here in Germany have cost untold billions to build. Yeah, but worth it. We have regional change. They cost more than the metro lines, so they could put more profit into the greedy Tories, but who said they're smart? Well, indeed. Spot on about HS2. However, Labour were just culpable for the beaching cuts. He was still cutting lines when Barbara Castle was Transport Minister. Yeah, I think Labour's excuse would be, well, they got it started, so we just continued with that policy. And this happens like a lot in politics. Weirdly enough, the education minister who shut down the most grammar schools in the UK was Margaret Thatcher. True story. And also, when Thatcher got in 1979, it would have been exactly 44 years ago today. And of those 44 years, 31 of them have been Tory. And what a great state the country is in. But when she got in, she paid off the strikers. Remember the winter of discontent? Yeah, all the people striking, yeah, she paid them off. Quietly, at the beginning of a term, so it wasn't a big election issue. But she just said, yeah, right, how much do you want? And they went, oh, we want a 10% pay increase. And they went, okay. True story. The famous dried out British curly sandwiches of the 1980s made out of Mother's Pride. Delish. Dried out British curly sandwiches. They were egg and cress. Egg and cress. I'm from Australia and where high-speed rail would make more sense, but we looked at it and it's not economically viable. That's from David Perkins. One of the things that I really felt in Australia was that the commute between the cities, especially Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, was just appalling. I mean, it was like you drive for a day. Well, maybe not a day, but you drive for a very, very, very long time to get from one city to the next. I've actually driven that route. I've also driven all the way to Perth from Melbourne and back. So I know how big Australia is. And it's in the interest of certain people who have lots of money, who want to make more money, for people to have to fly in those situations. And the idea of having high-speed rail in a country like Australia, which makes absolute sense on paper, obviously they'll say, oh no, we'll never make this economically viable, because they'll be looking at the number of people who take the train now, rather than, which is probably a better thing to do, realise that if you improve public infrastructure, you actually increase the number of people taking the train. So you've got to build it and then they will come, rather than say, hey, should we put on a gig? Well, we don't know, we haven't sold any tickets yet. And it's like, yeah, but if we say if we put the gig on, then people will buy the tickets. Otherwise, why would they buy tickets? A bit more complicated than that, I know. I'm being a bit facetious, but never mind. Grammar schools were good if you were poor and intelligent, though, weren't they? I'm too young, so happy to be corrected. But weren't they about giving intelligent kids a better education, even if poor? That's from Tim That. Yeah. This is why I don't have as much of a beef with grammar schools as I do with private schools. And it's very interesting to me when you have people who are privately educated, like Ed Davey and Layla Moran, putting forward in their manifesto that they're going to get rid of grammar schools. Not private schools, not the engines of privilege that create an iron ceiling for the people like us who didn't go to one of these posh schools. And just have a look, privateschoolmafia.com. privateschoolmafia.com. Go and have a look at that list, and you will poop your pants. Trying to keep it PG today. You will poop your pants at the sheer number of people in the public eye who went to public school. It is shocking. It's probably the most shocking website on the internet, if you can believe that. No, grammar schools were designed to be the poor man's private education. Listen, if I had my way, I would get rid of grammar schools and private schools. But I do feel at the moment the private schools are the bigger fish to fry that needs to be fried. If they ask nicely, we might let the children out first. Russian leftists and non-Putin aligned communists are becoming increasingly worried about cleansing by Putin's right-wing coalition. Sources Konstantin Agitprop on the D program. Yeah, we'll talk about what's going on in Ukraine on another show that I've got brewing called Geoscope, where we're going to be talking about world affairs. It's just time. At the moment, I'm running this channel. Phil is being absolutely bloody brilliant, helping me out with this. But other than that, it is a proper full-time job at the moment, running this channel. So if you do want to drop in a super chat or become a patron, I'd really, really appreciate it. Or just like and share the video, and so more people watch it. Labour gains have nothing to do with Starmer and his fixed Brexit policy is ignoring proportional representation demands. Yeah, Andrew, I don't disagree with that so much. But at the end of the day, going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, it doesn't really matter. It's not about getting people to convert, Brexiteers going, I'm going to vote for Labour now, because I don't think they will. I think it's a case of getting Labour voters out to vote, and that was something that Corbyn failed to do in 2 elections. I mean, he was all right in 2017, but he still lost. But in 2019, he absolutely singularly failed to get Labour voters out to vote. I think that's the most important thing. And then, look at the polls. Starmer, from his point of view, I'm trying to be empathetic here. Look, I'm not a massive Starmer fan, as I've said before. I think he's all right. But I feel like he's looked at the polls. Labour are consistently now 20 points ahead in the polls. They have been for almost a year now. And he's looking at that and going, okay, well, what have I doing? I'm just going to keep doing it. Which I understand. It's frustrating for me as someone who wants proportional representation and for us to rejoin the EU and a bunch of other stuff. But, I guess it's realpolitik, isn't it? Realpolitik. I went to my local county free grammar school. God, our teachers were real characters. That's from Hugh. Boris, for instance, because he was an out-and-out commie. It's all good. So I went to a school that is now a grammar school, but at the time it was classed as a selective comprehensive in Liverpool, and is actually one of the schools that has been singled out as one of the schools that benefited greatly from slavery. The people who founded the school were slavers. We knew this when we were in school in the 1990s, and we used to think it was funny, not that slavery happened, not that, but just that we had this school that was supposed to be a charity and it was supposed to be for helping our kids and that, but it was built off the back of slavery. And the school has done a lot to address this over the last couple of years, changing the names of the houses because they were named after the slavers to other people, and and acknowledging the past of what's happened and why that school is what it is. And I'd like to do a whole video on this, to be honest with you, the links to slavery, to institutions, British institutions, left, right, educational, political, scientific, all of these institutions that owe a debt to slavery. And I think that it is something that I would like to see more done in terms of reparations at least a reaching out. Acknowledgement would be nice. You know, Rishi Sunak could apologise for slavery, but he hasn't, and that's why one of the reasons why the leader of Belize has said, "Hey, listen, we're going to become a republic soon because we just don't like your attitude, mate." And reparations don't need to necessarily take the form of like millions and millions of pounds going from a British school to Barbados or Jamaica or Antigua and Barbuda. Instead, having an outreach program and having something where we can have more of a impact in their community and have people coming from their community over to the UK and have that paid for, that kind of thing, I think would be really, really helpful. One of the things that drives me mad as a history and politics graduate is that people don't want to talk about the history that makes them uncomfortable. They're very, very, very happy to talk about winning the war, winning the World Cup, etc., etc. But when it comes to stuff like the fact that the British Empire was founded on slavery, rape, murder, and pillaging, they don't want to talk about that. No. And a lot of people don't realise that, you know, there was the era of slavery and they went, oh, well, that was a terrific wheeze. What now? And then we had the era of colonisation. There were two specific eras of just being absolutely horrific to black people. And people go, oh, but what about white slaves? I'm like, there weren't any, because we knew that slavery was wrong. We knew it was wrong 400 years ago, just as we know now that it is wrong. There weren't any white slaves. You couldn't sell someone who was white. It was illegal to do that. You could sell someone who was black though. So yeah, there's a lot to be done. Outreach in not just the Caribbean but also West Africa. And I'd like to see that. I'd really like to see that. And I'll make a video. I'll make a note to make a video about that, specifically my school and its role in the slave trade in Liverpool, because it's something that the least we can do, the very, very least we can do in these situations is know about the past, know about what we did, and acknowledge it. That's the least. I mean, obviously we can build from there, but you have so many people who freak out that we pulled down a statue of, well, I didn't, but you know, people pulled down a statue of Edward Colston, who was a slave trader in Bristol, and people kicked off about it. The government brought in a law saying you couldn't pull down statues of paedophiles, slave traders. There's a guy in the middle of Durham on a horse who murdered over 6,000 Durham children. Mass murderer of Durham children. He killed them in his mines, as young as 8 years old, going down in his mines. And he basically sent them off on a death sentence into the hole in the ground for them to suffer and die. And there's a big statue of him in the middle of Durham where we have the Miners' Gala every year. Nice. Anyway, right, I'm gonna sign off in a moment. Thank you so much for all your messages coming in. Sorry I can't read them all. If you do want me to read your message, like straight away, if you drop a super chat in, just be a couple of quid, but if you drop a super chat in, I will read your message, obviously, because it comes up like all lit up and it's like, pay attention to me, I'm a super chat. So moving on to selective memory recollection, common in exceptionalism. Reparations also includes acknowledgement, which can be more important than the mere apology. We just did, didn't we? Yes, Recalbuni, absolutely. I don't see Labour going for PR. That's from Aki's Mad. I do see Labour going for PR because it's what the membership wants. There was a debate about it at the Labour Party conference last September. There was a vote on it, and we voted. The people who could vote, the delegates, voted to put it into our manifesto that we would have PR. It's been blocked by the leadership. But they can only block it so long. If it is the will of the members of the Labour Party, at some point the dam is going to have to break. Because if we have PR, then that's it for the Tories. That is it for the Tories for a generation. Because and that's what I want. I want the Tory party destroyed for what they've done. 13 years ago, if someone said to me, do you want the Tory party destroyed? I'd say no, I don't want it destroyed. I don't want it in power. But I think that you do need a robust opposition. And so, you know, I was happy for the Tory party to exist. Now, after all they've done over the last 13 years, that's it. It's over. The Tory party must be destroyed. End of. And if that means teaming up with the Lib Dems and the Greens and the SNP and Plaid Cymru, bring it on. I don't care. I don't mind. I will do whatever it takes to destroy the Tory party. That is our number one mission right now. So this can never happen again. What is happening in the UK right now, this can never happen again. Because I'm not foisting this on people's children and their grandchildren in the future. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. We need PR to protect us all from the scumbag Tories in the future, says Patrick H. And I couldn't agree more. Right, I'm going to head over to the Discord server now. If you are a patron or YouTube member, you should have automatic access. If you don't, please send me a message via YouTube or via Patreon to let me know, and I'll put you on there, and we're going to have a little bit of an after-hours chat. Definitely, Graham, I hope you're all right. Please let it happen. But the latest results are, they haven't really changed. I don't think any results have come in while I've been blabbering away. The Conservatives are still on minus 229, and the Labour are on plus 119. The Lib Dems on plus 62, and the Greens on plus 33. And apparently the Tory losses are disappointing, says Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. So thank you very much for watching. I will be back here at 1 o'clock today with, well, not he's going to be on Zoom, but I'm going to be back with Phil Morehouse, and we're going to be giving a little bit of a roundup of the news stories of the week. So if you want to join us for the agenda, please do that at 1 o'clock today. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. And until then, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.